Have you ever had a great idea but struggled to get people to see what you could see? Have you ever tried to explain something important only to realise that your audience was overwhelmed, confused, or simply not ready for the full picture? And have you ever noticed that in meetings, presentations, or even conferences, the best idea does not always win? The idea communicated with the most clarity often does. Today I'm joined by Antoniette Roze. Antoinette is the founder and CEO of WPC Speakers Global and the host of the Speak Pact Podcast. She works with speakers, experts and leaders to help them position their message, communicate with impact, and turn powerful ideas into something people can understand, remember, and act on. And this conversation is not just for keynote speakers. It is for every leader who has ever had to communicate a complex idea. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I have an interesting one for you today. We're joined by Antoniette Roze, who's the founder and CEO of WPC Speakers Global and the host of a podcast called Speak Pact. And what Antoniette does is she helps leaders that have got fantastic ideas to be able to cut through and get gigs, get speaking gigs, get booked by booking agents, the ability to capture someone's attention to the point where they want to book them to speak as a keynote speaker at a conference. Now, you're probably scratching your head going, well, that's not what we normally talk about at the Leadership Project, but there's a skill here that we want to unpack. And what I want to share with you is that the best ideas in the workplace aren't always the ideas that win. It's the ideas that are communicated with clarity are the ones that win through. So what we're going to be talking about today is how do you do that? If you're in a brainstorming session, if you're in a team meeting, if you're asked to do a presentation on behalf of your company, either internally or externally, how do you convert what might be a complex message into something that you can communicate with clarity? So without any further ado, Antoniette, I would love it if you would say hello to the audience, give us a little flavor of your own background, but most importantly, what inspires you to do the work that you do today?
Thank you, Mick, for having me. I have enjoyed the Leadership Project myself, and I'm thrilled to be a guest today. So what inspired me? It actually started pretty young. I won't go all the way deep into the story because it would take a good portion of this show, but I do go deep into it on Speak Pact if anybody wanted the deeper story. And it essentially happened when I was diagnosed with stage 4 very young and was thrown into a situation where we didn't know what the solutions were. We didn't really have the information. It was before AI. It was way before AI, way before even the internet. But still, even the bits and pieces we were getting of possible solutions were so fragmented. So when I emerged from that at a very young age, I decided I was going to help people find solutions, make them more accessible. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I certainly did not foresee the internet coming around. But even today, in the age of digital knowledge and automated intelligence, all of that, the human has to be the one to discern. And you get that eventually through multiple companies. I've gotten to enjoy great success in the industry for about 30 years. I started off as a producer and then as a typical agent. And now we have a completely different model at WPC Speakers Global. And it's all took leadership because it took the ability to evolve with all the big changes that were going on so that it could still be effective in that initial drive, which was to make sure that people had tangible solutions when they needed them, where they were looking for them. So what better way than to be a podcaster or a speaker, right? The people who are there in the audience are looking for answers. Same thing in the workplace, whether it's corporate or a nonprofit, an association. People are there because hopefully they believe in the company that they work for. They certainly want to do a good job. And you, as their leader, need to be able to give them the solutions that they need in order to do the best job that they can do.
Yeah, this is really interesting. There's a few things that are already emerging for me, Antoniette. And first of all, really sorry that you went through that at such a young age, but so glad that you're with us fit and strong and healthy today. It must have been a hell of an experience to go through, and certainly it helped you channel yourself and find some purpose. The things that captured my attention is that, yeah, in you and I and our lifetime, and probably the majority of the audience, our communication mediums and our communication platforms have evolved dramatically. There's things that exist today that none of us dreamt of, but two things didn't change. You said that humans are the ones that are going to be making decisions here. The humans didn't change. We're still talking to humans regardless of the communication medium. And then what are humans looking for? They're looking for solutions. Those the two things didn't change regardless of the change in medium. So what does this mean? That, like, when let's say that we're preparing for any form of communication, written, oral, podcast, keynote speak at a conference, what does that mean in terms of how I need to approach this? That I'm talking to human beings that are going to be discernible, and those human beings are looking for solutions or they're looking for answers.
So mingle, whether you're in front of your teams or you are in front of an audience. A lot of CEOs, CFOs, a lot of C-suite leadership have to present on behalf of their company in different formats. Whoever it is that you're in front of, you are not an information giver. We can get information all day long very easily anymore, especially in our world. What you're looking for is one micro transformation, one micro aha moment for them that they can then hang their hat on, go do the thing, and then they're ready for the next thing. It's kind of like, I don't want to mix my metaphors here. It's kind of like a chain, right? If there's one link missing in that chain, the chain isn't very useful if you want the whole length of the chain, right? So if you want the full strength, it's not going to happen if there's a link missing. So I think what a lot of leaders do without knowing it, they think they're doing the right thing, is they talk way above their people, number one, and they try to give all the chinks of the chain. Really, it just needs to be the next one, maximum next three. Let's get that down. And then we can go on to the next. If you really want those other leaders, right, those emerging leaders within your organization to be able to really get it, master the next piece, they're better for you. They're better for those who are working around them. And they are happier with themselves because they don't feel like a complete failure. They feel like, aha, I've mastered this. I'm ready for the next thing. Versus, oh my gosh, you told me to do 15 different things and I'm not doing any of them well.
Yeah, okay, really interesting. So there's a couple of key messages there that we're not there to communicate information. I think we need to unpack that a little bit more in a second. The second one, when you said about mingling, I tell you what jumped into my mind was, we say this as a throwaway line, but we need to convert it into something that's actionable and meaningful, and that's know your audience, right? So when I heard you say mingle, I'm thinking know my audience, and what I'm taking away from that is, where is my audience now, and what is the next step that they need to take? And then the third one, I'm going to use the word connection, but I'm also going to say, like when I think about your links in the chain, that if I've got 36 things in my mind, and this is something I've been working on for months or years, and I'm about to communicate it to an audience that is about to hear it for the first time, they're not ready to hear the 36 things. They might need a vision of where is this going, but what they really need is, what's the first step or the first two steps? How does that sit with you?
That's exactly right. And not only that, I'm going to go a step further, which may feel insulting, but it's not. You always present at a fifth grade level. Even if it's a presentation to your board or to possible investors, fifth grade level, not because they're not highly intelligent people, but they are distracted A lot of the information you're going to be bringing to them, just like you just now said, Mick, is brand new. So they're trying to connect all the links to catch up to what's common daily languaging and concepts to you because you live it every single day. They don't live your world. So you speak at a 5th grade level because your number one goal is they get that next link in the chink, right? They get that next piece that they need and they can go on. So I think if you're highly intelligent, it gets a little harder, right? Who was it that wrote, if I had more time, I would write a shorter letter? I think that it could very well parallel. If I was a little more aware, I would dumb it down. It's not because they're not smart. It's because you care enough that they get the foundation that you can build on, because then they're with you. If you lose them, you lose them.
Yeah, really good. You've blown me away just there. Only for a funny thing, I used that quote in the workplace yesterday with someone that was trying to, and this was literally was emails. They've been sending people emails that are 6 pages long and just losing everyone. And yeah, the quote, when I researched it, it's, most people think it's Mark Twain, and there's actually debate as to whether it was Mark Twain or Pascal and whether Mark Twain stole it. But yeah, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so here's a long one type thing. This is at the heart of your message. And it is actually a combination that you've probably been working on this topic that you're now about to present to everyone. You've been working on it for months. Your audience is hearing it for the first time. So if you start at the end of the journey, they're lost before you even start. All right, so I want to unpack that thing you said before. That was really interesting. And I think we do get stuck on this. You're not there to communicate information. If you're not there to communicate information, what are you there to communicate?
Understanding. So if I understand, if it becomes tangible to me, if you have nourished me with an aha moment, you've nourished me with something that I needed to be able to perform at a higher level, to connect all the dots, I'm mixing all kinds of metaphors, but you've nourished me. So I am, number one, not going to forget you. People will forget what you tell them. They will never forget how you made them feel. So if you connected some dots for me and a light bulb went off and I'm like, okay, I've got it. Good. I'm good. I can go do the thing now. That's what you're looking for. You can dump all kinds of information on them. And a confused mind I always say confused mind doesn't buy, but also a confused mind does not retain. They go on overload. Okay, so I'm very Italian and we love to cook. And there was this time I was making raviolis with my grandfather, Ignazio. And I was really, really excited to eat these raviolis. So I get to the table. I'm a tiny little girl and my head barely goes over the table. And there's just this mountain of raviolis on my plate. And I'm like, holy goodness, how am I going to eat this? And so I would, eat 2 or 3 raviolis. That was good. That was good for me. That's all I wanted. But on an Italian table, that's an insult. I was supposed to eat the whole thing. And I'm like, Rabbi, I love this, but it's too much, right? And that's the last way that you want to leave your people or any audience, where they just have their hands up saying, it's great. I love it. I love what you're saying, but it's too much. I just can't, right? Give them just enough, less than you think they need. Make sure they get it thoroughly. They feel triumphant when they leave that meeting or that one-to-one session, whatever the situation is, and let them digest and then schedule a time for the next.
Yeah, really good. I love the metaphor. And so the key message here is if you try to communicate 36 things, they're going to remember exactly 0 of them, and they're just going to freeze. They're going to freeze in spot. They don't know what they need to do next. And coming to your point, they're not there for information. They're there for solutions. And the solution is what gets them unstuck from wherever they are today. You're there to meet a need. And now I'm going to come back to your mingling. When you know where they are today, you can help them find the next step. But that's all they need. They don't need the 36 steps. They need the next step. And that's what's going to inspire them into action. So, Yeah, this is a hard one for a lot of us. If you're listening to this and you work in a very complex environment and you're the expert in your field, got to remember that you're talking to people that are months or years behind you. And remember what it was like when you were first learning your craft. You didn't run at 100 miles an hour on day one. You needed the first step. So this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to give people solutions on how to get unstuck from where they are today, to get into movement, get into action, build some inertia. How does that sit with you, Antoniette?
You said something, Mick, that was just so spot on. And that is, when you're the leader, there's just this fine space for you to be. And this is exactly how you remember where you once were. This is the formula right here. So number one, you should not be the overlord. Obviously, nobody really respects that. And you should not be the buddy. You definitely don't want to be the buddy. You have no clout at that point, but you should always be the partner. So when someone comes to you with a question, instead of just rattling off the answer, help partner with them, help them come up with the solution and give them a little guidance, but have the solution come to them. Then they're invested, number one. But when you figure something out on your own, it really sticks. When somebody tells you information versus you figure it out, that's the beginning of an emerging leader, which you want. You want leaders, not sheep, right? In your organization, troubleshooters, solution finders. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, I really like this. And what I'm hearing here is something that would build agency, would build empowerment, and would build ownership. So now what we're pivoting from, and this is at the heart of leadership, by the way, in your presentation, you're not trying to tell people what to do. You're trying to spark something in them, trying to spark an element of curiosity that gets them to ask themselves the right question so that they find their own answer. And when they find their own answer, they take that ownership that I'm talking about. Because it's now not, Antoniette told me what to do and I'm following step 3 of her 36-step process. I feel like, this is me. This is my journey. Now, is that what I'm hearing?
It is. And as you're watching this unfold, you're remembering it also shows you their thought process and where you were at one point, maybe many years ago. So you're connecting, not being a buddy, not being an overlord, but being somebody who links arms with their teams.
All right, let's build this into something practical. I want to do 2 here. I want to go internal and I want to go external. Let's go internal first. So if someone's listening to this, Antoniette, and they are an expert, right? So they're an expert in the company, they're an expert in topic X, and they have been called upon to do an internal presentation. It might be at the next town hall meeting or a functional team meeting or whatever, and they've been called on and they have been working on something for months, and now they've been tapped on the shoulder by the boss and said, okay, you're really getting there now. It's time to communicate this to the rest of the business. How do they start to codify what might be months of work to bring it back to something that will be more impactful in the way that we're talking here?
Yes. So you always reverse engineer, right? You've got this big project or this big thing that needs to be done. You reverse engineer to the smallest common denominator. And once you figure out what that next thing that has to be done within the organization or that position that person holds, you go all in on that next part. So you let them know, you help them understand, yes, the bigger picture, but the macro, but now you've got to get micro. So you tell them what needs to happen. You tell them the kind of the bigger picture and what their role is in that. And then you let them know their clear objectives within that role. And then you tell them what you just told them again, and then you have them repeat it back to you. So it's kind of a 4-step process, because somewhere in there, we all think differently. So somewhere in there, they're going to catch things that you have no way of prejudging.
Yeah, really good. Okay, so there's a few ingredients here. So it's a mapping exercise, mapping the journey, but you're not going to present the entire journey is what I'm hearing. So mapping the journey is where are they today? So that's a bit of a know your audience. My audience is stuck at point A of a 26-step process. Painting a vision of where we want to get to is up here, and that's got to be somewhat inspiring and relatable that, okay, this is where we want to get to. But then immediately bringing back, but the only way we're going to get there is if we take the first 2 or 3 steps, and doing it in a very much a less is more situation of only telling them the first 2 or 3 steps, even though they might be inspired by the top of the mountain now. You're going to talk to them about base camp and how we get started. Yeah, cool.
Yep, that's exactly it. So let's say you want to build a grand house and you have this vision for a grand house, but you know there are some things you need to do right now before you can even get there. So you have the big vision. I love the way that you said that. That's exactly right. But you can get overwhelmed by what it's going to actually take to achieve that. Let's not worry about, as a leader, you let them know, let's not worry about all of that. I just want you to see the bigger vision. Right now, all we really need to worry about is this.
Yeah. Okay. Really good. Okay. Now let's go external now. Let's say that the same expert is now getting called upon to communicate this amazing idea, this new innovation, whatever the case may be. And they're going to talk at an industry conference. Does the process change or is it more of the same?
That's very much more, it's just the same. So you know your audience, know your people, do your homework. And there's multiple ways that you can do that. If you can attend one of those events, if there happens to be an ability to do that, or watch a replay, that's brilliant. That's amazing. But understand who you're going to be speaking with, because you're going to speak very differently to a room full of doctors than you are to a room full of trucker leaders, right? So it's very, very, very different languaging. But really, all that ever changes are the stories and anecdotes that go along to help connect the dots for your people. You still never present more than 3 keys in any given talk, whether it's 45 minutes, 60 minutes, or a whole half day. It's just the same. It's just how deep you get to go in each one of them is what changes. But you still don't want to present more than 3 new ideas. 1 is, I feel, even more powerful than 3, but based on what you've been hired to achieve. And then within that 1 idea, you don't want to present really more than 3 ways to understand that new concept or idea. Again, I need to be able to get that before you move me on to the next one, or I'm still over here trying to figure out the last one and you're going ahead of me and you're losing my attention. So very much the same.
Really good. All right. So we're aiming for 1 big idea if we can, 1 impactful idea. I'll change the word big. Where 1 impactful idea is what we're aiming for, no more than 3. And what I'm hearing is then, so that rule is not going to change, but what's going to change might be the way I frame the idea, and the storytelling I use needs to be relatable to the people that I'm talking to. Where are they today? Okay, really good. All right, now let's transition this into the workplace in real time. And this might get a little bit more difficult here, Antoniette, in terms of doing it right there on the spot. One of the things that you and I spoke about before we hit record, and I teased it a little bit in the intro, is that the best ideas do not always win. So I'm going to transform us away from speaking and just into a team meeting or a brainstorming session. The best idea does not always win. The best communicated idea is the one that often wins, which can mean that in that brainstorming session that there might be I'm going to call it how I see it, a gifted genius in the room who's got an incredible idea that could transform the business. But everyone has gravitated to the one with, sometimes it can be just charisma, by the way. People have gravitated to the person with charisma, but they've certainly gravitated to the idea that was communicated with more clarity. How do we do this in real time? If we are one of those gifted geniuses that's got the idea that we think is going to change the future of the company, but we're in these brainstorming sessions with people that are communicating with more clarity than we do, what do we do?
Clarity is a big part of it, but actually what comes before clarity is position. So you talked about somebody with charisma. People with charisma, this is the only thing they've figured out. This is the one thing they figured out and they do well, making you feel like you are the only person that exists. When someone can make you feel like you're special, you're heard, you're understood, then you lean in. I mean, it's just a natural human response. So this is what I tell my speakers all the time. Buyers don't buy talks. They don't even buy presentations. What they buy is the positioning for the solution that they're looking for. So what that means is, yes, your message needs to be clear, but more than that, why are you any different than all the other leadership CEOs, CFOs, whatever out there? Why are you any different? What do you bring to the table? What is your position, your point of view, your approach that makes me want to gravitate towards maybe hiring you or being hired by you? Why would I want to work with you over all the other people that could possibly fill your role? And that it has everything to do with the way that you position the solutions that you bring. Did I communicate that well? Speaking of clarity.
Yeah, quite well, but I want to unpack something and see if I'm understanding it well. And so positioning or the position of way you're looking at it, and I'm not hearing position as, oh, it's the CEO talking, so I have to listen. I'm hearing connection and relationships and me feeling like, oh, that Antoniette, she gets me, she understands me, she's got my back. And as soon as I feel like I know, like, and trust you, and the trust comes from this, well, it has to have a certain credibility with it, but it's a connection that I trust you, that you've got my back, that your idea is in my interest because you care about me. So I feel like we're in Teddy Roosevelt territory here. One of his famous quotes is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if you're the one that knows everything, but people don't feel like you care about them, they shut down as soon as your mouth opens. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, flip the script. When you're in a big meeting and someone, maybe you had a casual conversation with the person who's in front of the room and they actually re-quote it back to the room, you're like, wow, that person actually heard my idea. They actually soaked it in. I'm leaning in and I'm going to listen to the rest of what they have to say, versus someone who brushes you off. We've all had it happen on both sides, right? If they brush you off, you just feel like, I'll listen if I have to. I'll be here, but I'm not really here. So do you want to be the leader that each person in the room believes that you do care, that you want to understand, that you want to hear all the different aspects, elements of what it is that needs to be accomplished? Or someone who's just going to get out up there, going back to, spilling out the information. I'm king, you're not. Right. So there's just a very different atmosphere and very different outcomes on how you position yourself, how you communicate, how you connect. I love that word. And I'm glad you brought that in, Mick. All those links in the chinks.
Yeah, really good. Let me play back something to you, because I'll tell you what's jumping through my brain when I hear you talk about this, Antoniette. I'm immediately thinking about the art of generative listening, in the words of Otto Scharmer and his work around Theory U. And bear with me, he talks about 4 levels of listening, all right? And level 1 listening is where a lot of us get stuck. And level 1 listening is only listening to things that confirm what we already believe. We're not actually hearing anything new. It gets even worse. I'm going to say level 0 listening, which Otto doesn't talk about, but I'm going to add this one in there. They're only listening to wait for their turn to talk. That's not going to have a connection, and that's not going to have cut through. When I go through Otto's levels, so level 2, listening with an open mind, Level 3, listening with an open heart. So you're picking up the emotion that's happening in the room. And level 4, listening with an open will to imagine a new reality. So what I'm hearing now is the one that's going to have the connection and the cut through, the one that says, go, oh, that Antoniette, she gets me, she understands me, she cares about me, is going to come from in that brainstorming session. Instead of just broadcasting your idea, you're going to build your idea on someone else's idea, which is where the generative listening comes in. And you might not have been the first one to speak at all. You might have gone, okay, Antoniette says X, Y, Z. And now when you present your idea, you go, Antoniette, I'm hearing X, Y, Z. I'm hearing it's really important to you and that you've got this challenge. That leads me to think, and now you present your idea, but now you've connected. You're not just going, and I'm going to be crass here for a second and go, the opposite of this would be, okay, Antoniette, your idea is not important. And whether you say those words out loud, the way you present yourself, the way you position is going to send a message as to whether you care about Antoniette's idea or not. You're going to, okay, yeah, whatever. That's your idea. My idea is X. Now I'm not listening to that because you ignored my idea. Is this making sense? The generative listening? Yeah.
It really does. It brings back a kind of an allegory that I utilize with, not really allegory, but an illustration I utilize with my speakers. And that it has everything to do with connection. So early in your dating years, right? I know we might be thinking back in some time where it felt like perpetual interviews. So you're dating. I don't envy those days. You could be across the table from someone. You could even be engaged in a conversation, yet you have this feeling that they're always looking past you, either over your head or to your side, because they're more interested in, well, what else can I gain? Versus that person who's looking at you when you're speaking right into your eye. They repeat back, like you said, some of what you said to connect their next thought on. We've been on those dates. We've also been on dates where you can talk. It doesn't matter what you say. You could say a frog is purple and they don't hear you, but they already have their next thought formulated in their head. So they're letting you talk just because you're supposed to, but they're really not hearing you. And they really just have their own agenda. As a leader, there are those kinds of leaders, and the ineffectual ones are the ones who look past their people because they've got a lot on their plate. So what good is any one person in the bigger scheme of things? Or they honestly don't hear them. They just have an agenda and they need to get their agenda out. And okay, if you need to talk, and I'm going to get my agenda out. The real leader is the one who understands the value of each individual, no matter where they are at in that organization. There's great stories about CEOs, right, talking to the janitor and getting a revolutionary idea just from something that the janitor had seen in their perspective, what they're seeing on the ground level that CEO would never see because they're just far removed from that. So if you really understand the value of each person and truly listen to them, not just pretend, not just flatter so you can repeat some of what they say to make them feel like you're listening, but honestly listen. People will always respect that authenticity. They will be devoted to you. They will be your raving fan. And when people are your raving fans, they're going to do the best. They're going to put out their best for you and that company.
Really good. So the two words there, are you truly listening? That's the two words I took away. Truly listening. Are you truly listening? Or are you walking into meetings where you went into the meeting with your own 3 ideas and you walked out of the meeting with the same 3 ideas? And if you're doing that, you weren't truly listening. Or if you go into this generative listening, you'll end up in a situation where you're building on each other. You could even put this to Judith Glazer's work around conversational intelligence, that you're moving to a yes and. Oh, that's interesting. And now you're building on each other and you end up with a richer idea, a co-created idea that people are going to take. Coming back to our bit about ownership, a co-created idea people are going to take ownership of, and they're going to walk away with a warm, fuzzy feeling of, oh, that that Antoniette, she really listened to me. And I feel like my fingerprints are on this solution now. Like, and if it goes the other way and the boss just comes in and goes, yep, really good meeting, team. The three things are 1, 2, 3. And they're the same things that they started at the start of the meeting with. And there's no buy-in. There's no buy-in to that. And people don't feel heard. They don't feel valued. They don't feel like they matter anymore because the boss just gave the answer at the end. All of that brainstorming was, sorry, I'm going to call it how it is. That was BS. We did brainstorming for the sake of brainstorming, and the boss then just told everyone what to do. So are you truly listening? Okay, really interesting. All right, another challenge for you, Antoinette. Why do brilliant experts sometimes just stay hidden, right? So they're sitting in that room, they've got their ideas, but they're not finding their voice at all. They might be sitting there scribbling and they are listening, but they're scribbling and they're not finding their voice.
A lot of times, brilliant people are overthinkers and they want to get it perfect. They're also overperformers. So if they can't do those things, then they're just not going to do it at all. They're going to stay hidden till they feel like they can do it perfect, right? And be the one. Really, scrappy is the new perfect at any level of corporate life, at any level in the speaking industry. People don't want perfection. They really want authenticity, relatability, and to feel heard and understood. So I really believe that that's it. That if somebody is too brilliant, they skip over the basics because they want to get to those bigger ideas, and if they can't do it perfect, then they're just not going to do it.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never thought of it that way. I'm going to play it back to you from the other scale, the other side of it. So my personal preference here would be I'd much prefer to blurt out an imperfect idea and say, hey, team, help me improve this idea, than to wait until I've got it perfect. So you're saying that for some people, no, that's uncomfortable and they want to have the perfect idea even before they say the first word. Interesting. So how can we encourage those people to let go a little bit and go, no, it's okay to blurt out a half-baked idea so that we can work on it?
Create safe spaces. And really, you outlined that a moment ago. So if I already know you're coming in with your 3 ideas, you really don't want to hear, you don't want those ideas shooken up too much. You want to walk out with those 3 ideas. I am not really going to put myself out there.
Why would I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And be shot down. Give me a safe space. And actually, even if it seems pretty far removed from our usual MO, our usual method of operation, let's play around with it a little bit, because that can become another idea. That's a safe space. And I will loosen up and I'll say the things that are not perfect because we're going to play around with it. Right?
Yeah, really good. Okay. All right. Excellent. I want to throw another one that's at the expert level here as well. And I'm going to call this the curse of expertise. And we covered this a little bit when we were talking about the expert that's got 36 things to share because they've been working on this for months. But it's the same thing in a meeting situation. If you've got the curse of expertise, I'm sorry, that sounds awful, but if you know every single nook and cranny of the topic that everyone's talking about, and you're in a room with people that are not at the same level as you might get frustrated, either in 2 ways, where you go, well, wow, this conversation is so basic and why am I in this room? Through to you're trying to articulate yourself, but your level of knowledge on this topic is way beyond other people's current comprehension because they haven't been on the same journey as you. When you've got that deep knowledge, much more than anyone in the room, how do you act?
Okay, so the remedy for that is just really simple. Think like a kid, right? Think about an experience, make it an experience, make it interactive, make it a little bit playful, because in there you get to drop your bigger ideas, your bigger areas of understanding. amidst some really interactive, either role playing or other exercises that the room is doing together. Number one, when you get a little bit playful, your guards come down. You're more open to receiving, and it's probably known that your knowledge base is far above where they are at right then. So if you're just going to try to convey to them what they're supposed to understand, when they know that there's that huge gap between where they're at and where you are, it's going to be a hard bridge to bring them over. But once you start playing, once it becomes an experience and an interactive back and forth, that bridge closes really quickly. I will share a quick story. I took my son to Israel for 7 weeks when he was 4 or 5. He turned 5 when we were there. And we were staying in this old, neat place where the kids in that little complex did not speak English, and my son did not speak their language. But when they started playing soccer, they were best of friends. When they were trying to convey ideas through words, it was awkward, and there was really nothing was happening. But once they really started interacting, then that language barrier did not exist. So same thing, when you have your languaging is up here and you're trying to speak to a room that their languaging is in a very different place, play.
Yeah, good. So I'm hearing two things there. Common ground, finding some common ground, and then be a bit playful with it, and that can be fun. Yeah, really good. Okay. All right. I've got a couple more things to test with you. I like to do this when we have experts like yourself. I get the opportunity to ask curious things. The next one I want to talk to you about is humility. That I'm going to say it's ingrained in us from such a young age that we need to be humble. Putting ourselves up on the stage and projecting an image of who we are and all of this kind of stuff, it can kind of be counterintuitive to that humility that, if we want to have a visible profile, that we want to be a keynote speaker and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't always come across so humble. So where's the connection between visibility and humility?
This is a great question, Mick. So humility is a very misunderstood word, very much like pride. So you can have confidence, you can have knowing, but it doesn't mean that you can't have confidence and be humble. And you can't have knowing without being prideful. You can have knowing, and okay, so here's an example. When you are, let's say, learning from somebody you just really, really admire, maybe it's a politician or maybe it's a Olympian, they've just accomplished far above what most of us are probably going to accomplish. The ones who are not making that so obvious, making that gap so obvious, are the ones that actually command even more respect. So the further removed you are, the harder you need to work at creating a bridge between you and the people that you're speaking with. That interactive sort of experiential tip that I just gave, playing, that's one. But also sharing some of the things that happened along the way where you flat out failed. You actually did just like them. You understand where they are because you were there once. So really sharing your stories that aren't so prettied up, that aren't so polished, so that they understand really, we all use a bathroom. We all brush our teeth in the morning. We all have to wash our dogs, hopefully. I don't know, some people take them to the groomer, but what fun is that? We're all human. I have accomplished these, maybe what seem to be bigger things. But at the end of the day, I love my children. I enjoy my community. I'm just a person. And you need to be able to communicate those kinds of things. Where you need to be careful is that it's not about levels. I think that in leadership, we think in terms of levels. I need to come down to their level, or they need to rise to my level. That's horrible. I don't love that at all.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah.
It's not about levels. It's about position. I'm going back to positioning. So I'm not going to become your buddy because I am your boss, or I'm not going to become your buddy because you have hired me to convey a solution, and I'm going to take that seriously. However, I'm going to connect and bridge with you. It's a nuance, but it's a very, very important one.
Yeah. Okay. What I'm picking up as the common thread is this. So my takeaway from what you just said was it's completely okay to be proud and confident in how far you've come and what you've achieved. But the way to connect to people is show you human like they are. That we're all put our pants on one leg at a time. And guess what? This journey that everyone else sees where I've achieved this thing that I'm here to share with you, guess what? That journey wasn't linear. And I made 27 mistakes along the way, or probably even more. And that shows you're human and that you've got human emotions and human needs. And now you're relatable to me. Like if you just pretend, and it would be a pretend, by the way, because there's no such thing as, linear success. If you pretend that, this is easy, or so it's obvious, it's easier, you're not going to come across as relatable. Okay, interesting. Okay, I've got one more to test with you. And that's where identity comes in. There's going to be people listening to this, Antoniette, that maybe they would like to do public speaking one day, although for many people there's a lot of fear with that, but that's not what we're talking about today. The identity of people that say things like, I'm just not good at public speaking, or I'm not a public speaker, or I'm not good at standing up in front of people. How do we reframe when we get stuck like that?
I love working with people who are not good public speakers, and I'll tell you why, because then it becomes formulaic and rote. And to me, who I love working with is someone who's passionate about helping the people in front of them. And that's really all you need to be as a speaker. When was the last time you got nervous or self-conscious when you were helping someone with a real problem see a solution and a new path that they can try out that could actually completely transform or revolutionize where they were headed? So when you think of, let's say you are going to be in front of a room of 500 people, 5,000 people, the number doesn't matter. The one remedy to you being too self-focused is think of one person that you have truly helped and see their face in that crowd and stop thinking about you. They're not there because your hair is perfect. They're there because they need a solution. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. Give them the solution. And if you're an expert at a solution, I love working with experts at solutions, especially when they aren't common. They're coming from a different angle, a different point of view, because that's the perfect speaker.
Yeah, really good. Okay. All right. You've given us a lot to think about today, Antoinette. If I could play back some of it. So a lot of this is about positioning. It's really about the positioning was something that really cut through with me today, Antoinette, and understanding our audience and not try to bombard them with so much information, but to position it in a way where you show that you understand them, that you get them, that you've got their interest at heart, and then to communicate our idea in a way that might give them the big vision of what's achievable and what could be done, but empowers them into sparking curiosity in with them that allows them to take the first 1, 2, or 3 steps, nothing more. And that's when you're going to get to some cut through. And it applies to public speaking all the way through to in that team meeting to show other people that you care about them. The Teddy Roosevelt one I think is good. People don't care how much you know until you know how much you care. So make sure that you're truly listening, that you're truly understanding who you're talking to, so that you can then articulate your idea or can even be posed as a question to then have them have some kind of generative experience from this where they go, oh, okay, this Antoniette, she really gets me and she's helping me. She's helping me here. and we're helping each other, and you end up with being able to have much more clarity in your communication when you get that positioning right. Thank you so much. I'm going to take us now to our rapid round. These are the same 4 questions we ask all of our guests. So what's the one thing that you know now, Antoniette Roze, that you wish you knew when you were 20?
So usually my career obviously is all about the words we speak. And really the thing that I wish I would have known in my 20s was how powerful the words that I speak just to myself are. I'm not good enough. I'm just not going to get this, right? Those kinds of things that you tell yourself in those early years. Your body believes you. Whatever you tell it, it's going to protect you with your belief. And a lot of times that holds you back and makes the journey a little bit longer. You got to circle that mountain a few more times. So if I really understood, when I faced a challenge, instead of said, I don't think I'm good. I don't think I can do this. If I would have said to myself something along the lines of, this might be challenging, but I'm all for it. I've got what it takes. If I would have understood the power of the spoken words, even if they're thought inwardly, as much as I understood it from the get-go, how powerful words are outwardly, I think that my road, I don't begrudge any part of my road. It's been an amazing journey, but I think I would have had to, stub my toe on fewer rocks and circle that mountain a few less times.
Very good. That's very powerful. And, we all have an inner voice. We all have an inner monologue, and we get to choose what kind of language we use with ourselves. And I got to say, for many of us, the inner critic, we talk to ourselves in that inner monologue in a way we'd never talk to another human being sometimes. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite book?
Oh, hands down, Seth Godin's Purple Cow book. I don't know the whole title, but I've read it backwards and forwards digitally a million times. And it all has to do with positioning, going back to positioning. In a sea of white cows, how can you be easily identifiable as the solution to that problem? So Seth Godin's Purple Cow book.
Very good. What's your favorite quote?
That comes from, I've got several. I'm gonna use Seth Godin's again. There's actually one from Steve Jobs that I like. Can I share 2 or just one?
Go for it.
Okay. So for Seth Godin, there's no shortage of remarkable ideas. What's missing is the will to execute. Between a leader and a follower. So innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. And of course, that's Steve Jobs. Again, it's all about action. So are we going to innovate and actually follow through with that? That's a leader, right? That's a leader who has the courage to come up with an idea and act on it versus following someone else's ideas all the time.
Yeah, good. There's a connection between the two as well, which is nice as well. Okay, very good. And finally, Antoinette, there's going to be people listening to this, and I'm going to say in different ways. There's going to be some that are struggling. They're the expert in their field and they're struggling to cut through with messaging. They don't feel understood, all of these things. Through to there's going to be a subset of our audience that go, yeah, I've always wanted to be a public speaker, but I don't know how to get booked on gigs and how to get seen and, known for my expertise. How do people find you if they'd like to know more about your work?
Thank you for that, Mick. And for both of those subsets, I've got 2 resources for them. For the first subset, it's my podcast. So if you're a leader wanting to communicate better with your people, then Speak Pact to make the greatest impact with the power of your voice as possible. So speak, PACT.com. I have a top podcast, which I'm very proud of. But what's neat about the podcast is I bring in other leaders from all different kinds of industries who talk about connection, communication, and yes, presenting, because you're presenting, whether it's in front of a boardroom or whether it's in front of an audience, it's all presenting and positioning those ideas. So speakpact.com. And then if you are wanting to explore, where do you begin? Like how do you get your position? How do you get your message? How would you even charge? All of those kinds of things. I host a 3-day revenue lab. It's speakerrevenuelab.com, speakerrevenuelab.com, very, very inexpensively, under $100. I'm not selling on this show, but it just shows you 3 days with me, you will get all of that. And then you can really determine at that point whether or not you want to go, dive into speaking, or let's say you're already speaking. You really want to take it to the next level. I have very advanced speakers and just emerging speakers all in the same room. It's just a neat experience. I do it 3 or 4 times a year, and it's just a very rich, amazing experience. So that would be a really great place to start.
All right, wonderful. And we'll put the links in the show notes as well. Well, thank you so much, Antoniette. I really appreciate your time today, for the gift of your time, your wisdom, and your experience. You've given us a lot to think about, but also things that we can action. We can take the first steps of improving the way that we position and the way that we cut through with our messaging. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Mick. Keep doing this important work.
What a practical and thought-provoking conversation with Antoniette Roze. The idea that really stayed with me is this: leadership communication is not about giving people more information. It's about creating understanding. And that distinction matters, because many leaders, especially deep experts, fall into the trap of trying to communicate every single thing that they know. They've been working on an idea for months. They can see the full complexity. They can see all 36 steps. They can see the risks, the trade-offs, the dependencies, and the destination. But the audience is often hearing it for the first time. And if we start at step 36, we lose them before they have even begun. Antoinette gave us a powerful reminder that people do not need the whole mountain on day one. They need to see the mountain, yes. They need to understand why it matters. But then they need to know where base camp is. They need the next link in the chain. They need the one insight, the one micro transformation, the one practical step that helps them move from confusion into movement. And that is such a powerful lesson for leadership, because a confused mind does not retain. A confused mind does not engage. A confused mind does not act. And that does not mean we dumb things down because people are not intelligent. That's not it at all. It means we care enough to make the message accessible. That was one of the strongest threads in this conversation with me. Clarity is an act of service. When we communicate with clarity, we're not showing off how much we know. We're helping others understand what they need to know next. So here is my invitation to you. Before your next presentation, meeting, or important conversation, pause and ask yourself 5 questions. Who am I speaking to? Where are they right now? What problem are they trying to solve? What is the one idea they most need to understand? And what is the next step that will help them move forward? If you can answer those questions clearly, your communication will become more useful, more human, and more impactful. Because leadership is not about proving how much we know. It is about helping people understand what matters, why it matters, and what they can do next. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Leadership Project. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone who has great ideas, but may need help turning those ideas into clarity, connection, and action. And join us next week when I speak with Dr. Ron Friedman, award-winning psychologist and best-selling author of The Best Place to Work, Decoding Greatness, and Super Teams. You've been listening to The Leadership Project. If today sparked an insight, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with one other person who would benefit from listening to the show. A huge thank you to Gerald Calabo for his tireless work editing every episode, and to my amazing wife, Say, who does all the heavy lifting in the background to make this show possible. None of this happens without them. Around here, we believe leadership is a practice, not a position, that people should feel seen, heard, valued, and that they matter, and that the best leaders trade ego for empathy, certainty for curiosity, and control for trust. If that resonates with you, please subscribe on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. And if you want more, follow me on LinkedIn and explore our archives for conversations that move you from knowing to doing. Until next time, lead with curiosity, courage, and care.